everyone. How are you guys doing? Good? So I'm here today to tell you a little bit more of how VoxCell is revolutionizing the drug development process. But before we get to that point, we actually need to understand what the drug development process is. And the drug development process is this process in which pharmaceutical companies take a drug from an idea all the way to the market. So we go through this pipeline in which drugs are tested in preclinical testing in the lab, and then the decisions are made to know which drugs should be tested in animal models and which drugs should be tested in people. So if you think about this process, we are talking about a funnel. So making decisions earlier on, those decisions are going to affect the likelihood of success of those drugs later on. This entire process takes 15 years and more than $2 billion. And the challenge with that is the success rate is less than 5%. So something has to change in these preclinical platforms. The problem with the current preclinical platforms, they're not complex enough. So if you think about 2D monolayers, and even if you don't know what that means, you do know that your body is not 2D. So 3D is what should be taken into consideration when doing this drug screening. And then if we go forward to very complex organisms, such as animal models, we know animals are not people. So we have to find a better way to do that translation. So we decrease that clinical failure, and we increase the possibility to have earlier insights on that pipeline. So that means that we should take into consideration the blood vessels. The blood vessels play a crucial role on systemically delivery of drugs. That means all oncology drugs play a role here. So the blood vessels play a role in vascular permeability. Are the drugs actually leaving the blood vessels and penetrating the disease area? Drug penetration, are they going deeper? Are they actually, in our case, killing the cancer? PK/PD, that stands for pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. Those are very, very big words to tell you how your body is interacting with the drug and how the drug is interacting with your body. And of course, angiogenesis and metastasis. What that means is the growth of the blood vessels, and that's challenging because that allows the cancer to actually grow from there and go to different locations inside of the body. So VoxCell is here in a mission to really accelerate the drug development process using vascularized cancer tissue models. And these cancer tissue models, I have one in my pocket, and they look just like this. This is actually a replica of one of our tissue models, but 5,000 times bigger than the reality. So the same complexity that we obtain here, that you see here, is obtained in our samples at 5,000 times smaller. We are a Victoria-based company, so we are very close to here. We are 21 people, and my team is here, a very hard-working group of people. And we have a 12,000 square feet facility, which is a big deal for us, because now we can take multiple projects and really increase the production of these tissue models. If you think about the vasculature and the impact of the vasculature, VoxCell is really focused on increasing that complexity. So can we create tissue models in which the blood vessels actually mimic that target area? Some tissues are more vascularized, and some tissues are less vascularized. So that gives us the flexibility to create these models because we have developed our own software. So our software is the trade secret behind this technology. And that what allows us to really play on the complexity of the role of this blood vessel. I will show you a video here how these tissue models are created. They are created by combining 3 pieces of technology. Number one is our very high-resolution bioprinter that allows us to have very different features, our software that generates blood vessels, and number 3 is our bioinks. What we see as a result is a 3D model that contains real cancer cells, healthy cells, and a blood vessel structure. The idea is simple. Let's use the blood vessels the way they were meant to use. Let's inject the drug therapies through the vasculature and see how drug distribution extravasation is happening with those drugs and biologics, and see how they interact with the cancer cells. So VoxCell is doing all of that, as you saw, by using bioprinting technology. So that allows us to create this complex tissue, layer by layer, with very thin capillary vessels that mimic your own capillary vessels. Our software allows us to create that blood vessel network, really with different complexity, different diameters, density, size, and structures, the way to fit your disease target. And then the last piece is, of course, our bio-ink, that is our printer's cartridge. And that's what allows us to mimic the biomechanical and the mechanical structure of the tissue. That is quite important because that will influence drug penetration and extravasation. What you see there in the images, you see drug perfusion being done on our tissues. On the green would be mimicking a small molecule, so most chemotherapy drugs, for example. In the sparkly image, that is mimicking more of a biological, so large particles that would have to really actively permeate that blood vessel and reach the tissue, the cancer area. And VoxCell is also spending a lot of time making sure that endothelial cells, what that means, that's your own blood vessel cells, they're quite happy inside of our vessels. And they're lining up that vessel structure in a way that is really mimicking your own capillary vessel. So this is another beautiful image of our endothelial wall being formed inside of this vasculature. So we have validated our tissues. Our focus, as I mentioned, is oncology, so lung cancer and breast cancer. We have validated our triple-negative breast cancer tissue last year. And the important study that we did was using paclitaxel, which is a common chemotherapy drug. It's highly acceptable, right, for many, many patients. But what we saw on VoxCell's tissue, we saw nanomolar sensitivity. So that means that we are operating under that clinically relevant concentration, which is very, very important, where most preclinical platforms are operating at a much higher concentration than this. So that means that VoxCell has the sensitivity that is required to do very precise testing. Leveraging that technology, we spent some time creating relationships in Europe, and we signed a paid pilot of $500,000 with 2 German partners in Europe to create lung tissue models. But the special part about these lung tissue models is that they are patient-derived. So we are receiving patient cells from Germany, being shipped here to Canada, and we create these tissue models. What we are tracking in these tissue models is TCR-T therapy. So what you have been hearing a lot about antibody kind of therapy, that's exactly what we are tracking here. So what we're seeing is drug extravasation from the vasculature into the cancer area, which is we are now using to sign more partnerships with local partners. I hope I spend enough time to say how VoxCell can really impact the drug development process. And there are multiple ways that we can do that. One of them is really accelerated screening. Can we get to a point where we have faster go, no-go decisions earlier on in the pipeline, and we are not spending a lot of time and a lot of money and tracking failure later on? Can we get to a point where we are reducing animal testing? We saw the FDA is endorsing this now. There is a plan to phase out animal testing. There has never been a better moment to work on this technology that VoxCell is doing right now. And of course, the holy grail is to improve success rate. Can we get to a point where we are increasing the success rate even by just a little bit? It would already be quite meaningful. This technology has immense capabilities that we are not even fully aware of. But one of them is really personalized medicine. What that means is taking your own cells, putting in our tissue, and testing the drugs for you before even testing on you. So that's the space that is the future that we see for VoxCell. And to get to that future, we need support. And we are raising right now $10 million, and that is going to be our growth round. What this round is going to do is accelerate productions of our tissue models, increase the team and hire key team members, but on top of that, really include automation to our printer. What that means, capability to have even a higher throughput that we currently have. VoxCell is proud to be female-led, more than 50% women, and more than 50% immigrants. And together, we shape the future of drug development. Our mission is quite simple. We want to accelerate the drug development process, allowing therapies to hit the market sooner into the hands of people who need them. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon.